Hello and welcome to the Fabulous at 50 podcast, celebrating a vibrant global community of women over 50 through entertaining interviews that will inspire, educate, and empower. Your host, Joanne Neweduk, was born to nurture and promote vibrance. Joanne is both the Community Director for Calgary, Canada, and oversees the global operations for Fabulous at 50. As an oncology nurse, integrative practitioner in multiple modalities, life skills mentor, and manager, Joanne moves people from challenging situations to positive outcomes through the use of her innate gifts and learned skills. Here's your host, Joanne Neweduk.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Fabulous at 50. I am so happy to have my next guest on. This just warms my heart because all of you would probably know, if you've been listening to some of my other podcasts, that I, a number of years ago, got absolutely enthralled with the power of sound and how it impacts us. And I fell in love with some sound tools like Tibetan bowls and crystal bowls. And I was so happy when my mentor, Sharon Carne, agreed to be on today's podcast so we can share all about the amazing journey that she's been on and share a little bit about this work. So Sharon, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Joanne. I'm just so delighted and thrilled to be here.
Well, I'm so happy that you and Ed made a big leap of faith in creating the Sound Wellness Institute. And I know we're going to get into that a little bit about how that evolved. But I want to start off with, you told me something I wasn't aware of and I'd love to just kick off this episode with asking you about your 50th birthday. When you turned 50, it was a dream birthday, I understand. Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, thank you, Joanne, because it was my dream birthday because I planned it. And my husband did. His whole family was never into birthdays.
Right.
And 50 was a big event for me, more so than 40. 40
Okay.
kind of came and went and really meh, the way the kids would say.
You're busy,
Yeah.
You're doing kids. It's like another decade. Yeah.
Exactly. 50 was different for me. And I had a flute and guitar duo at the time, was doing a lot of performing. I was busy with the conservatory and a full slate of students, and had a lot of colleagues within the musical community, particularly within the classical guitar community. I'm a classical guitarist.
I'm going to put that out there, that you are just such a talented guitarist and musician, and you carried that into teaching and some collaboration. I know we'll talk about that more, but I want to set the stage that is your grounding initially. It wasn't, you didn't grow up playing with Tibetan bowls and their healing frequencies.
No, I grew up playing the classical guitar, and totally, it lit a fire under me. Anyway, my 50th birthday, I rented a community hall, had family come in and help decorate it, and it was an open stage. That was the gift. If there were no other gifts allowed, if you wanted to give a gift, you went up and you read a poem, you sang your favorite song, you played your instrument. I played for about 20 minutes myself as my gift to the audience. And then Anna and I played for about 15 or 20 minutes, our flute and guitar pieces.
Nice.
And then friends and colleagues and family all came up to do something or read a poem. There was one poem that was written for me by a very special friend, Ode to Guitar, which is hanging on my wall in the studio here. And our kids do you know, there's a comedy show, was it Whose Line Is This Anyway?
Oh yeah, like the improv. I love that. It's so funny.
Oh my God, they did a skit. And so this is, both my boys were in their teens, and then their cousin and his girlfriend and a couple of other of their friends. We were rolling on the floor. It was so funny.
That is fun.
And so we had snacks, and I think we had performances that went from about 8:30 or so till about midnight.
Wow.
It
What
was
a
just,
beautiful idea. I'm getting shivers. I'm like, I want to copy this.
it was my dream birthday. It was
Beautiful.
totally my dream birthday.
Hmm. I love that. Now, after that, you just said that turning 50 was really significant for you and you wanted to honor that. So what changed in your life after 50?
There was an enormous shift in my own mindset and in my own search, I guess, Joanna, is really the only other way to put it. The kids were in their teens. They were figuring out what they wanted to do. And
Hmm.
so, this is the time of life when a lot of women are, I have a very rewarding career at Mount Royal University, and I'm thinking there's something missing. There's
Yeah.
something missing.
There's something
So
missing or there's something more. There's something next.
that too, yes. And what was missing for me was more inner connection, and that
Mm,
connection with, I
yeah.
call it my spiritual or soul self, that is ignored so much in this mindset, or this culture,
It's
I
the
could say.
it's the busyness of life. I find that that
Yes.
gets put on the back burner so often, and you are not the first guest that I've had that has said that. It is a common theme with all of the women involved with Fabulous at 50 and the fabulous health programs, that there are so many transitions we go through. I physically, we go through menopause and emotionally and empty nest for those that have had children, but just so many changes. So tell us a little bit more of what your transition was like and what your evolution and growth was like.
Well, it's like I got put on the accelerated fast track for
Okay.
growth. It
Yeah.
was fascinating. And I just couldn't get enough of it, Joanne. And one of the
Wow.
things I discovered in some of this learning, in addition to bringing more wholeness, because when we get too busy and when we get involved in all of this aspect of life, we forget one of the most important parts of our wholeness is that spiritual connection, that
Yeah.
spiritual essence or part of us, however you define it, that gives us meaning, that gives
Beautiful.
us purpose. That's where it comes from. That gives us grace. That's where it comes from.
Hmm.
And in addition to that, the when a woman turns 50, and the shift in the body from menopause to no more menses and movement of the egg, there still is a spiritual egg. And I thoroughly, strongly believe that when a woman enters into her 50s, she is in her most powerful time. Those eggs become birth of new service to the world, which the world
Oh,
desperately,
amazing.
desperately needs. And
Beautiful. I
this
want
is
you to
when
say this again. I want you to say it again, that you believe that in our 50s, women, that this can be the most powerful time of our life.
it is the most
It
powerful
is.
time of life. And
Beautiful.
in a way, those eggs are fertile ideas to serve the world. And
Love
this
it.
is where women shine in their 50s. They can.
Mm.
They can. And they're meant to.
Yes. Yes. I'm getting tingles because, as you know, with the Fabulous at 50, and this is why we're so akin here, is I often say is that, women in midlife have so much to share with each other and the world. And that's what you're saying here. So how did you, like, that's a beautiful, thought on what happened to you kind of emotionally, spiritually, energetically. How did it materialize in your world, in your life? What did you do differently over this last while since that magical birthday of yours?
Oh gosh. Well,
Because you've taken on
probably.
so much. You've done so much. It's amazing.
Well, it is fascinating, and I think part of that journey, sound. Well, one of the things that, well, I've been in sound and music all my life, and I had never realized the healing power of sound. And about this time, I was
Mm.
starting to shift that understanding of the depth of effect that sound has on us. and was doing a lot of research at this time. So I was diving into the library, the internet, scientific studies in my 50s, and
Mm-hmm.
not knowing where it was going. It was just a thirst
Yes.
to learn deeper about what's going on with this. I've been in this all my life and never even thought about that aspect of sound.
Right. That makes sense.
So
So you were involved in the honing in your craft of becoming a good guitarist, but not so much giving mindful thought on how is the sound impacting others and myself, and just how
totally.
other sounds like that mindfulness really makes us shift. We can have the same experience. We can be doing the exact same thing, but as soon as we bring a mindfulness practice to it, the entire experience shifts. And I know you have some really interesting stories of what you did and how sound was so powerful. Like while weren't you part of like a bit of an experiment at Mount Royal, carrying the
Hmm.
sound or so? Like, do you want
Hmm.
to share? I that really impacted me. If you'd like to share that story.
Oh, would love to, because and this is kind of in that I had spent many years before I turned 50 and then following 50 where it was starting to become consolidated as a path. And I guess that 50 years old was a turning point there
Mm-hmm.
where the years of research was starting to filter into more focus. And then the
Mm-hmm.
study happened, and that was one of those things that came from just a phone call from out of the blue. I
Yeah.
got a call from the director of the Integrative Health Institute at the university. And the first thing she says is, "Hi, Sharon, I'm so and so, director of the Integrative Health Institute. I hear you're into sound therapy." Because I had previously, as part of my own personal search to answer my own questions about what
Yeah.
is it about sound, I went to the United States and studied with Jonathan Goldman and Tom Kenyon. And
Fantastic.
somehow word got around the university and the call happened. Well, I took part in the study, was delighted to be asked to create a program for people in the study. It was so effective that I thought, I couldn't answer questions. When people asked, how do we learn more about this? There was no place I could send them at that time.
Mm.
Nowhere. And so I created Sound Wellness a month after that as a way to get the
Wow.
information out there without having any knowledge about how to set up a business, no network, none. It was just like everything that I'd spent decades building was no longer worked. It was like starting from scratch, but with a focus that to me felt like soul work.
How
And
inspirational. Like
well, I
I
was
it's so
58.
inspirational that you did this. Sorry, you said you were
I was
58?
58 when that study
See, that
happened.
is amazing. And that's what I want is that, the women that are listening, I really hope there's women in their 30s and 40s listening to this as well. But certainly any of the women in midlife in their 50s and
Mhm.
their 60s, is if you have something burning inside of you, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you turn it into a business, but just go with a passion and start learning about it.
This is a
I
gift
mean,
you're meant to give to the world, and the world needs it. And the mature
absolutely.
woman is the one to deliver it. Really,
I
really.
agree. Yeah. Because, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. Right. So I want to honor. And before we go any further, I want people to understand. So, Sound Wellness Institute, I know you started initially, and then it's a whole nother fun story how your husband came into working. And you two make an amazing pair because you have all this artistic side of you, and Ed is the engineer, the scientific brain side,
The
the very
techie who
left
does the
side, the
website.
tech.
Yeah.
That's right. He has the knack, as we joke around to say, to do all the technology. And the two of you have created an amazing platform. And can you share what your website is and a little bit about what you're offering right now? And then we'll circle back to your story.
Okay. Sound wellness. As soon as I created, thought we have to create sound wellness, and then Ed got busy creating the website. So sound wellness has become a center, the website itself, for people to come to learn more about how to create more wholeness and how to manage stress. They're kind of both
Mhm.
connected in that way.
Yes. Yes.
Because sound, the way the human body, the human being, every particle of your being is wired to respond to sound. It's like that's There's nothing, no part of us that isn't wired to respond to sound. So sound is powerful for helping support our health at all levels.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so Sound Wellness was created, the website was, and the whole business, I guess, was created as a bit of a hub to get information out to people, to give them tools and ways to use that wiring, because it's
Hmm.
so effective and hardly anybody knows about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be soundwellness.com.
Yes.
But that is not, I mean, I know that's what it started off, like this clearinghouse of information, but then it evolved into it's a teaching institute. And
Hmm.
you guys became, to my understanding, one of the first to certify sound practitioners. Now that, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you sound is so powerful and we can really open up people's emotions and tap in and like deep healing can happen, but also it can, if someone's not trained
Hmm.
well,
Hmm.
to take someone from a journey of opening up a deep wound and bringing them to a positive outcome, there's a challenge there. If you can tell us a little bit about, weren't you finding things on the internet where it's like, here, take this 1 hour course and you're now certified in bowls, and that just is
Certified sound
dangerous.
healer. Well, yeah, exactly. And one of the things I've always believed in, and I'm still a member of, music teachers, so professional associations, because I believe in that community that helps you find colleagues and learn and
Yes.
grow in your own career. Well, when I did my own sound healing training in the early 2000s and before early 2000s, I guess, I looked in Canada for a professional practitioner association. And then, well, you could register for, and this helps bring you colleagues, learning, all kinds of wonderful things, and credibility, among other things, for a holistic
Exactly.
modality. Sound healing or sound therapy wasn't on anybody's list
So it wasn't
anywhere.
regulated at all, really.
No, and it may
Yeah.
never be. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's in that mushy stage where
Yeah.
the research is exploding and it's starting to go that way. So I thought, okay, this has got to change. This is not acceptable. Sound
Yeah.
needs to be on that list of
But you took
accepted
action, and
modality.
I love that. And
So
now you offer incredible courses. Can you share a little bit about what courses? So if someone's listening, and I'll share a little bit about my story, or you can, about coming into your sphere.
Mm. Well, as we created the Sound Wellness Institute, we wanted to bring credibility to the training. So we created a competency level certification, which is the highest level of certification. And
Yes.
then we applied to the largest practitioner professional association of Canada for formal approval of our programs
Beautiful.
to give our
Yes.
practitioners even more credibility. And we were accepted. So
Awesome.
that is the beginning of it, the beginning of shifting, the change in that history.
I love it.
So the courses have evolved into a level one practitioner training, which is also open for those who want to immerse themselves into using sound care, sound healing, or sound therapy for your own self care. So
Right.
that we call the fundamentals.
Okay.
Now, that's a 3-day course. However, if you want to dip your toe in the water before you find out if sound is really for you, that's called Sound Wellness Foundation. So it's like the basement. It's like dip your toe in the water, check it out, try
Right.
this, try that. And you go, if you find that, oh, wow, this is helpful, the fundamentals of healing with sound and music is our 3-day level one
Nice.
program. And
Nice.
then level two is mostly for practitioner training. So we have 3 courses in that level. We have the Harmony for Life, which grounds sound and the understanding and effect of sound deeper into your being and how to use it and work with it. Then we have the practical methods for practitioners, where we bring out the massage tables and we really work. And then there's
Yes.
also a business course that Ed insists that is available for practitioners who haven't had business training to help them grow their
Yeah.
business.
Bob, I love that one. The business no, business of business. We
Business
call
of
it Bob.
business.
And he always goes, I'm putting my Bob hat on right now when he wants to give us
Yeah.
advice,
Yeah.
which
And
is
then
fun. And
we're creating
yeah, and
level
you're,
3, which is what
yes,
you are part of, Joanne.
I
Like,
know.
I'm
I'm
so
so
excited.
excited to be invited to help do the anatomy and physiology side. And because we are working with, yes, we're working with our energy, but we are also physical beings and we need to know what we're doing with that. So I wanted to share that when I first met you, I was introduced to you by our dear friend, Sandy Dacey, who is also the producer for the podcast, not the YouTube side, but the audio side of this podcast. And when I had asked her to do a little bit of a talk on sound, and she goes, well, the real person you need to talk to for this is Sharon. And so that's when we all came together and we did an in-person Fab at 50 introduction to sound therapy. And I remember you bringing all your different equipment and your bowls, and we watched how the sound impacted sand and made all the beautiful patterns, which was gorgeous. And I just love that. And then when Sandy really wanted to take one of your courses, I was a little bit like, I didn't know what was going on, but I went, oh, that sounds really lovely. I'll take one of those courses. Lo and behold, here I am going as kind of the +1 person. And I found I just resonated, and pun intended, with the bowls and so drawn in. And I was incredibly blown away by how much scientific data backed it all up, right? That nursing side of me wanted the data on how sound impacts us. So I loved it. And by the end of that weekend, I kind of walked out going, wait a minute, how did this just happen? I was registered for all of your courses and ended up being your first graduate in the certification level 1,
Yep.
followed very closely by Carmen the next day.
Yeah. That
And I
was
know
so
she's gone
awesome.
on to do the level 2 to kind of beat me there. But I just want to say really publicly, thank you for what you bring to the world with sound, because it's honestly 10 years ago, if you saw that, it would be all, oh, well, that's kind of woo-woo. And now, I mean, I can't scroll on my Facebook or anything without advertisements for people that are realizing they want to come full circle and come back.
Mhm.
So let's switch a little bit into like, why is it? What is it, especially about this year, that is drawing people to needing and wanting and holding on to things like sound practice?
Because it's so effective in reducing stress. And when you take a look, one of the things that Ed especially has been researching through the Mental Health Association of Canada, who's been gathering statistics every few months of where we're at as far as stressed out, and
Yes.
it's up to about 90% of the population right now.
Wow.
And that's that. And then there's other levels of stress as far as how it affects stress and fear. Of course, they're kind of go together because fear creates a stress response in the body, and it's essential. It's an essential part of our nervous system to keep us safe. That's its
Yeah.
job. But
Like
it
stress is
cannot.
important.
Yes, it's
But
totally essential, but it can't
our
stay there.
Exactly. There was a cool book. I wonder if you've read this, because I know you're so well read. I haven't myself, but I just heard about it. And it's called something along the lines of Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers.
Oh, I haven't heard of that. I have to write that down.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And it had to do with like, and believe me, they have stress, but they, when a predator is after them, they kick into red alert. They do what they need to do. And then it's like, okay, that's done. And I'm just
It's
going to go
gone.
back to munching grass and drinking water. And I think that's very profound. And so I know for myself that sound has been one of the most calming ways. And when I talk about sound, it's not always bowls and so forth. It's that you teach also, it's sound, it's music, it's
Mhm.
beats, and voice. And
Mm.
I personally love, because I don't really sing. One of my issues was I didn't feel like I could sing, but what I learned is I could hold specific notes that would resonate through my whole body. And I use that as my active meditation practice,
Me
as
too.
opposed to trying to sit there and go, be blank. Like there's so many different meditative practices. I personally
Thank
like some.
heavens.
The I like the active ones because what it does is when we actively practice, then we can practice. We don't have to be sitting in a dark, quiet room with our eyes closed.
Mhm.
Meditation can happen with eyes open. And ideally, we should be able to do a meditative practice within a split second of situations to actually keep our systems calm.
Totally.
So,
It's
yeah,
essential, Joanne. It's essential because we need the parasympathetic, the rest and digest part of our
yes,
nervous system. If we're always on the stressed part, we don't get the rest and digest, which is very unhealthy for us. And sound, I love to say sound is food for your nervous system. So
yes,
it's perfect. It's
nutrition.
the perfect way to bring these two halves of your nervous system into harmony. They're never really balanced because there's always, oh, that's a worried thought. Oh, there's a breath. Oh, there's another worried thought. Oh, there's a breath. Oh, there's something happened in the traffic. Oh, there's a breath. They're always
I
back
like
and
the
forth.
way you're saying that because I'm picturing as you're doing that and you're using your hands to show that is it's a bit like a tightrope walker. They are
Oh, yeah.
never walking just steady. It is always a little tip this way, a little tip this way. But the balance is it's, a little bit up and down. But if any one goes way too far the other, then that's when trouble happens. And that's when we tip off.
Yeah, we are tipped off right now. And we
Yeah.
need the parasympathetic to yank us back up onto the wire. So that's where sound is so helpful because it helps to really powerfully activate that parasympathetic system.
Fantastic. Now, we're going to keep talking about your story, but what I would like to do is when we end this podcast, we're going to continue this conversation, but why don't we share with our listening audience? It'll go into the Fab Club membership site. Why don't we continue this and actually do a demonstration of a nervous system protocol to help support the women that are listening that are members. If you're not a member yet, you can easily become a member. Go to the Fabulous at 50. So it'd be fabulousat50.com website and say, make me a member. It's very affordable and there is tons of information. We have weekly live calls, plus in the membership site, you have recorded past calls. And I often once a month, I do some sort of sound healing, sound meditation or voice. But we will put this specific protocol in that is a bit more like if you're going for an actual sound healing and you're paying for a practitioner, we can share and explain that more. So stay tuned for that. But I want to circle back because if I understand correctly, like you hit 50, you went through this major kind of like, I want to follow my soul purpose. And the sound wellness was born. You did, and I don't want to gloss over it. You just did tremendous stuff. I mean, you wrote a book and you grew this incredible business and you partnered with your husband and you're doing sound and teaching and those courses. But I know that fairly recently, last year, you had another milestone birthday. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I find this so beautiful and inspirational to have been asked to be part of it as well.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. And this, like my 50th birthday, the 660 kind of came and went, and I'm not
Mhm.
sure why. It just kind of came and went.
Mhm.
However, I had my 70th birthday last July, and
Wow.
it kind of came and went, and there was something that felt not quite right about it. Well, of course, we were in lockdown and not able to visit, all of that stuff, almost locked down. But so it's cooked in me. And then one of my other friends said, "You need to do something." Because this is
You need
a
to
this
honor
is
it.
a big milestone. Yes, and I hadn't. So on the solstice, December 20th, I
Mhm.
thought I had this friend of mine who many of you probably know. It's Cheryl Hines, Reverend Cheryl Hines.
Yes.
She's also one of our practitioners, and I asked her to do a wise woman honoring ceremony, and sometimes
Love it.
called a croning. And it
Mhm.
was magical. It was exactly what I needed. totally different from my
Yeah.
50th.
Because it was
But
all on Zoom. Like, but the magic of Zoom, like, thank goodness we could come together.
yeah, Joanne, and in honoring 70, I needed the formal, for me personally, I needed to formally step into the energy of elder.
Love
And
it.
so I call myself now baby elder.
Baby
And
elder.
so here I'm learning that different kind of role and how it'll manifest in my life. And part of this ceremony was having someone represent the maiden and someone represent the mother. And oh, Joanne, you represented the mother for me, and you brought such tears to my eyes. Still do.
Yeah. Oh, to my heart as well. That I felt like I channeled that it was what needed to be said just passed through me that day. It was such an honor to be there to represent that energy in all of us and the energy that I saw in you. So what a beautiful ceremony. And I think it's so important that we honor with ceremonies and celebrations. This has been part of humankind culture in every culture. But I find that in Western culture, we get away from that. There's not quite the same ceremonies of like a young woman or a young man to say, I'm not a child anymore. I am now a man. The most is like whatever the drinking age, they go out and get drunk with their friends. Maybe it's a bit of a transition, but not quite the same. But I think it's really important. And that's why with Fab at 50, we want to honor this time in our life. Not to say that any other time is not as important, but that there's a real shift that happens as you mentioned, in women in their 50s.
This is
And
so
yeah.
important, Joanne, and this community is so, so important to honor that part of a woman's life. It's
Mhm.
essential.
hmm And I am so grateful for women like yourself that are inspirations to us, with your knowledge, partly with your knowledge, which is incredible, but also just with your own determination and drive by example, that you're out there doing it. And it's like, wow, if she didn't do that, I can do something along those lines. And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's bowls or writing, or there's always something within us that we can expand and learn and grow. Now, talking about that is, I would imagine that over the years, you have little pearls of wisdom or guiding principles in your life, perhaps, that have supported you and might support others. I'm wondering if you could share three of them with us.
I would love to. The first would be to trust your heart and its
Oh,
voice,
beautiful.
because we tend to listen to this voice more than the heart,
Okay.
and it's the heart that knows. This
Got
is
my
meant
hand
to
on my
serve
head,
the
hand
heart.
on my heart.
They're meant to work together, and sometimes they don't do that so well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so trust your heart.
Okay.
Um, be open to synchronicity. The
Mm.
reason I'm doing
Yeah.
sound wellness is because I had a phone call that came out of the blue that gave me an invitation that changed my life.
Wow. Wow.
So be open to synchronicity. And the third one is become aware of the sound around you, because it
Okay.
affects you whether or not you realize that. So become aware of the sound around you.
On that note, one of the things, I mean, obviously there was so much I learned in your courses, but one that really profoundly had me going, wow, was, I think I knew this from my science classes, but it really sunk in that sound travels through solid faster than air. So that what we're saying has already reverberated through our own bones before it even hits our ears. And that one really woke me up to how I integrate even with my own children or other people. And just the words we are saying goes into their system, into their body before their brains even connecting with it. So the importance of not yelling. I mean, I don't know, like anyone that's listening to this that's
It
had kids,
happens.
there's going to be times, but there is a difference between don't touch the stove and literally just, taking out anger on anybody, right? That sound. So that is one, but the sound of just, and bringing gratitude, whether you're listening to the chirp of the bird or you're putting on music that's uplifting. And, I'm having all these flashback memories quickly now of sitting in your courses where some of it was literally listen to these different types of music and then explaining to us the different beats or, what was different about this sound and that sound and how it impacted us. Right. We all discovered how much I do not like white sound or white noise.
Yeah, it's like, turn that off.
Drives me nuts, right? But I mean, how fun to learn about. Before I went into your course, I had no idea that there's pink sound and gray sound, and I had no idea. Like white sound seems to be pretty mainstream. We know like a fuzzy radio or something can support people, but it's so individual.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. So listen to your heart. Yeah.
Be
open to synchronicity. Yeah. Like
and
really
become aware of the sound around you. And from what you were saying, I call that an inner sonic massage that the voice gives your being before it gets to where it's going. Yeah. So, that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we are talking about being awareness of sound. I was saying this before. I have been listening. So this is my crystal bowl. And when our voices, that there's no denying that our voices carry energy. This bowl has been doing sympathetic resonance. So it's been doing a low hum, ding, and I'm just going to do a little sound to entice those that may not yet be Fab Club members. We're going to play around with some crystal bowls, and we'll use the tuning fork sound, the nervous system calming. And, I know I don't have all of my bowls here. I'm in my office where I'm doing the podcast. I do have a beautiful sound practitioner room in my basement level.
Gorgeous.
Where I have all of my bowls, but the lighting's not as good there and to move everything, but just to hear that resonate through my whole body. And what I think is fun is friends and family that come over. I actually have this bowl, this particular set, sits on an end table right in my living room, my front living room. It's not all hidden away somewhere. And I love it. People that come over that know nothing about sound therapy and stuff are drawn to it. They come over and they're like, oh, can I play with it? And children. And I've had impromptu, this is obviously before when it was more open house, shall we say. People come over and we end up sitting around my living room just playing with these bowls because they're experimenting. And I blow their mind when I actually put water in it and start making the sound and it's dancing. And it's just fun. Amazing. So this gets into a whole nother conversation. And that's why I encourage, if you're listening to this and you're drawn to taking one of these courses, I highly recommend. You have been able to adapt to doing these online.
Yes.
So, which is fantastic. You've been so wonderful with that. And at this point, I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful day and encourage you to come on into the back office, the membership site of Fab Club on the fabulousat50.com website. But don't forget to also go to soundwellness.com because you have some incredible downloads there, right? Some beautiful downloads, some free gifts that they can get that will help support them. Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on today's call, Sharon.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. What a fun conversation. Yeah. We could go on and on. That's
exactly. So fun. Okay. Take care.
Thanks for joining us today. You've been listening to the Fabulous at 50 podcast with your host, Joanne Neweduk. Join us again for more inspirational interviews on topics that matter to you. If you like what you've heard on today's episode, check out the liner notes, or to learn more about this vibrant community that celebrates women over 50, please visit fabulousat50.com. That's www.fabulousat50.com.